Hello, everyone, and welcome to Harbor Time Strategy Talks. I'm your host, Colin Harbor. Today is September 1st, 2020, and it's been quite a 12-month period. I know that everybody has ups and downs, rolling 12-month periods, annual periods, but I've got to say, this collectively, I think we as human beings have had a crazy, crazy 12 months. But it is still 2020 and we're still moving forward. So thanks for listening and watching Harbor Time Strategy Talks. All the feedback I've received so far has been welcomed, and we continue to look at the formatting and frequency to make sure that we're delivering the best content for you. I did take the last few weeks off, but I am glad to be back, definitely. Our topic today is going to be a fun one. Content, I think is what we'll probably name this podcast. It's always a hot topic. It's always been a hot topic. But I think more than ever, we can find it anywhere these days. We can find it on our phones, on billboards, in our ears, on email boxes, through text. I mean, it takes all forms: video, written, podcast. As I was preparing for this with our guest today, I found some great information. But one of the things that I focused on was an article written by Bill Gates back in 1996. And it was an essay entitled "Content is King," and it was published on Microsoft's website. So I'm going to read a couple of quotes from that, because keep in mind this was 1996, but I think also it's applicable today in what we're going to talk about. And this is a quote from the essay. "One of the exciting things about the internet is that anyone with a PC and a modem can publish whatever content they can create. In a sense, the internet is the multimedia equivalent of the photocopier. It allows material to be duplicated at low cost, no matter what the size of the audience." True, right? Of course, he was focused on the internet at the time. Now we can talk about our phones and other ways that we access the web. But here's another quote. "If people are to be expected to put up with turning on a computer to read a screen, they must be rewarded with deep and extremely up-to-date information that they can explore at will. They need to have audio and possibly video." We're actually going to talk a lot about video today, but keep in mind this is 96. "They need an opportunity for personal involvement that goes far beyond that offered through the letters to the editor pages of the print magazine." So that's really what we're going to focus on today. Content. I personally began pushing out content pretty heavily back in January of this year. Wrote some articles, published them on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is one of my main distribution networks. I've since started a podcast. I've got a blog. There's a lot of different things we do. But one of the benefits of LinkedIn is that you can literally meet people from all over the world. And I recently connected with one, but she is actually right here in my own backyard of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So as I mentioned in the social networking over the last few weeks, I had the opportunity to connect with today's guest, Fanny Dunagan. And Fanny is the CEO and video content strategist for Pathlinks LLC. So Fanny, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Pathlinks, and what is Pathlinks, and what do you do?
Thank you. Hi, Colin. Thank you for having me on your podcast, and so appreciate the opportunity. So my name is Fanny Dunagan. I'm the owner and video strategist for Pathlinks. And Pathlinks came out of a very interesting period of my life. I had a whole corporate career for a decade in doing communications and training and business consulting. And I took several years off to be a stay-at-home mom. And that's when I kind of lost my way as to what I wanted to do with regards to my career. and I started volunteering at a local outreach center. And that's when I kind of got into supporting the community, helping the community, putting together training programs for them. And over time, I ended up organizing job fairs for them. And that became a business because we ended up engaging with tons of employers and tons of job seekers. And I did tons of outreach on Facebook and LinkedIn and doing content, right? In line with your topic for today. And that's when I fell in love with creating content, especially for LinkedIn. So now with Pathlinks, I help both corporations with their employer branding and recruitment, and then I help individuals build their LinkedIn brand and create content calendars and create engagement and community around their services and products. So that in a nutshell
Sure, no,
is kind of what I do.
And I know that you know, I'm going to give you more opportunity to discuss yourself and your services, but you kind of hit on one of the questions that I wanted to ask about, or one of the topics I wanted to discuss. And let's start with the big picture. I mean, when I looked at your LinkedIn profile, you say that you help others, and you just mentioned it, build community and engagement. So what do you mean by build community and engagement, and why is it important to build community and engagement?
Yes. So you mentioned content is king, right? So I have a second part of that sentence for you, and that is engagement is queen.
Okay.
Because you can post all kinds of content out there, but if you don't engage with your audience, if you don't engage in the comments, build rapport, build relationships, then it just becomes very one way. And when you create community engagement, you're actually building a relationship and building trust with your audience. And over time, that's going to increase your following. That's going to increase the number of warm leads that you're going to get. And ultimately, that will increase the number of clients you're going to get. So what do I mean by engagement? The very first thing to start with is to just make sure you're always commenting on other people's feeds and engaging with people and commenting with people that comment on your feed. Right? It's not just a one-way thing and you post and then you wait for the people to come. You have to go out there and engage with other people's content. And that's how you're going to build up relationships, and that's how you're going to build up community. I've met so many people inside the comments of posts. And that's where like an initial conversation starts, even just with a few sentences. And from there, we jump on direct messaging. And then from there, we jump on phone calls. And then, you know, a lot of times right now we can't meet face to face, but then a lot of times that becomes like a face to face conversation or meeting, or, you know, we start to look for ways to collaborate or work together.
Sure, so, and I can attest to that, by the way, because that's how we met, was through some comments. Yes. And we've scheduled a call, and now you're helping me with my podcast, but essentially helping yourself too, but putting out content.
Absolutely.
We have since found out that we have a mutual connection, who also speaks very highly of you, by the way, which I mentioned.
Thank you.
She will be a guest on the podcast in a few weeks. So it's been great, and I understand that, particularly the engagement piece is once I started engaging with others, I started being engaged with. I don't know if I said that correctly, but you know what I mean, right? People start engaging back, and you are building that.
It's like a little, in a way, you can think of it as a networking event inside the comments, right? Because you go around a room and you kind of have a little chit chat, right, with people in the room, right, when you're networking in person. So same thing with comments. You kind of look to see what kind of, you know, posts or feeds appeal to you. And from there, you start to engage with them in the comments.
Sure. I was going to say, even if it was a little bit weird to some people to engage with others in the social networks like that, prior to, say, March of 2020, it's not as weird now because we can't hardly get out and see each other and visit with each other. So that is, in this way, of course, is another way, but that is how we're engaging, is through comments and building each other up. One of the hashtags I put on some content that I've been creating at the end of it, and putting it in LinkedIn is good vibes only. I'm trying to be positive.
Ah,
I think we need to be
yes,
positive, and that's a
yes.
different topic. So I know that it's a struggle for most of us to grab attention and get the engagement we're looking for. So
Mm.
let's talk about what you call, and I did see even a post today, I think, where you were focusing on
Yeah,
this,
it's
but
very timely.
what you call the 4 purposes of content. What are
Yes, yes.
they?
So what I've noticed, I like to curate information, right? Like I'm a geek at heart. I used to be a former engineer. And so I just like to gather information and then look for patterns. And so when I first started out on LinkedIn, I just consumed content. I just kept on looking and going through everything in my feed, looking at different topics and all that. And what I noticed over the years is that I realized that all content kind of falls into these 4 categories or these 4 purposes. And what I've noticed is, number one, there are things like educational posts, posts where you educate people, right? And that's very popular, especially on LinkedIn, where you're giving out advice or tips or a list of something, top 5 ways to improve whatever, top 3 mistakes to avoid when doing this, and so
Sure.
forth. So that's the number one purpose of a lot of content on LinkedIn, is to educate. So whenever you can, definitely create posts that are educational or tip or advice based. So that would be number one. Number 2 purpose would be to inform, right? So you're providing information for people, whether it's sharing a post of someone else, or you're informing people of events that you're having, or you yourself, Colin, you're informing people of the latest podcast episodes that are dropping, what date they're going to drop, when are you going to launch another one, and so forth. So, or if you're presenting somewhere or you're attending a conference, announce that and inform people of the goings and happenings around town, as well as for your own career and packages. Right? So those are informational posts. Number 3 is inspirational posts, where you inspire people. Another thing I always say is, like, talk to people's heads,
Sure.
but also talk to people's hearts. And inspirational posts are when you share quotes that have lifted you up, or, like you said, positive vibes, right? Things that you think are spreading positivity and hope. And especially right now during this pandemic with so much job loss, I think it's more important than ever to kind of help your neighbor, right? And inspire people with a quote that touches them, or share a business story, or share a challenge that you overcame, and really speak from the heart and being authentic. And those are the things that really connect you to your audiences when you share something about yourself that's very heartfelt.
Sure.
So that's number 3. And number 4 is entertaining. Be entertaining, right? There's a lot of funny people out there. I don't always think I'm very funny, so I don't try to be. But there's like super engaging and funny posts or creative ways to share your information. Do it through music. Do it through a cartoon. Do it through art. Do it through imagery. I still remember this one guy that's very popular on LinkedIn as well. I think his name is Ahmed, and he's out of Australia. And he rapped a LinkedIn song, and he talked about connections and all that. And it was super entertaining, and it got tons of views and tons of engagement because he shared something that was educational and information. And then he did it in this entertaining, engaging way, right? So then you wrap it all up into this like really great package.
Sure.
So yeah, those are the 4 main purposes that I've noticed that all content fall into: entertain, inform, inspire, and educate.
Yeah, and on that entertain, one of my most viewed posts that I've made on LinkedIn, I think it was last week, but I found an article somewhere that had Bill Murray, if you know Bill Murray, the comedian, who I would say is a funny guy, but he had posed, or they had put his face on like historical photographs and paintings of Napoleon, of of George Washington, of, Russian czars, of all these people, I opened it up yesterday afternoon and looked again and laughed. I mean, it is one of the funniest things, but I posted it and I got so many comments personally and individually and so many views. So it's interesting the different things that people show. So
Absolutely.
let's talk about how do you construct your ideas? I mean, I get the four pillars or the four, themes, if you will, but do you, and I'm not asking you to give away anything proprietary here, obviously, but
sure.
Do your ideas just come to you? Do you schedule them? Do you have a schedule you work off of? How do you do that, or what's your personal preference?
I do. I guess two things. So first of all, when it comes to ideas, I always tell people to be very purposeful about your content, right? Meaning that ask yourself, first of all, discover what you want to offer to the world, right? What your expertise is, what your service is. And I always tell people to put it into three big buckets, right? So if you're in IT, then you might want to talk about cloud, Microsoft, and maybe like service providers or something, right? Like really ask yourself, what are your three buckets that you want to always talk about, right? And from there, take those buckets and then subdivide it into what I call subtopics, right? So within, let's say, human resource, we might be talking about recruitment. And then within recruitment, you ask yourself, okay, am I going to talk about how to write better resumes, how to do better interviews, and how to reach out to recruiters, let's say. So then suddenly you have three subtopics from your three buckets.
Sure.
Right? And then from there, drill down into tips and advice, very tangible things and takeaways that people can absorb in these kind of 1-2 minute videos or a scrolling through a certain kind of posts. And that way you go from your main topics and your three fields of expertise, and you drill it down into these tangible tips and advice that people can absorb and take into like tactical things and actions that they can take. And so that in itself can form all kinds of tips and themes and topics that you can roll out in a calendar. Sure. I always encourage people, and that's one of the things I do for my clients, is I help them build out month-to-month calendars. So, you can choose monthly themes, weekly themes, and then from there, daily posts of how that ties into your various themes. Sure. And so that, in a nutshell, is how you take something very broad, like IT or HR, and then drill it down to tactical pieces of advice. And that's how you kind of slowly win over audiences and show your value to your community.
Well, great. I appreciate that. That is great tips. Those are great tips. So I'm curious, when I read the quotes earlier from Bill Gates, it was 1996. Video wasn't as big out there at the time. How did you choose video content? Let's put it this way, as opposed to written content or spoken content, or why is video the main one?
I didn't purposely choose video, honestly speaking. What I did notice, this was probably 3 or 4 years ago. What I did notice in creating content for these job fairs and building up our relationships with employers and job seekers is both on Facebook and on LinkedIn, they were giving so much extra playtime and priority to videos. And so if I wanted to reach more of a massive audience to get them to come to those events, I had to really get on video, because print and imagery or text just wasn't having as much of a reach. So we were on the midst of a big event and we had to do one final push. And so I was like, okay, let's just do it. heart pounding, super scared, super nervous. And, my partner and I, we just hit record, and then I recorded a promotion for the event. And that's when I discovered the power of video. And over the years, I've done more and more and more videos. And one thing that I found is, we've all heard the term, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? Mm-hmm. Well, a video is worth 1,000,000 words.
Yeah,
because on video, you have body language, you have energy, you can
personality,
right?
Yeah.
Like all the subtle things that can never come out on a piece of paper or on a photo, right? And so what I've noticed is when you put yourself on video, people feel like over time, if you're consistent with it, people feel like they know you before they even meet you.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
And so by the time you get on a phone call or a conversation with them, if you're trying to land clients, they become a warm lead, right? They're no longer a cold lead. A lot of times people reach out to me, they say, I've been following you for months and I finally decided to reach out to you. So in a way, the videos have helped me create this relationship, and they can kind of like test me out, see if I'm worth talking to, right? And from there, by the time they actually reach out to me, they've already seen me multiple times on video. They've decided whether I'm a fit for them or not. Sure. And we're in a warm and engaging conversation. So videos create trust. As long as you're very aligned with who you are and how authentic you are in your message, then that's how you're going to kind of pull people in, build trust, build relationships, build an audience, create engagement, and land clients.
Sure. Well, that's great. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love video. I think one of the hardest parts about me for video is I've always spoken, I've always met with clients and done other things. But when you start recording yourself to put out, you start seeing your own little weird things, like I look around too much. So don't look around so much. There's things like that. But it's great way to learn. But speaking of video content, I was reviewing yesterday on YouTube one of your videos, and it was entitled "How to Create LinkedIn Content That Lands Jobs." Yes. And it was a light bulb moment for me. I thought about the things that you discussed in it, not necessarily the job searching function of it, but in that video you discussed utilizing job descriptions to come up with topics for content. Let's talk about that for a minute, since that's already content that you've got out there. And
absolutely, yeah. For those of you out there, I post all my content and tips on YouTube, kind of like a library. So look me up, Fanny Dunagan, on YouTube, and subscribe. But one of the things that I worked a lot with employers and job seekers, and these days it's not enough just to have a resume and just to have a LinkedIn profile. Recruiters, so like when I have my recruiting hat on, I'm going out there to kind of skim through and look through what kind of content you put out, so that I can see you for the person you are, and also kind of figure out what your values are and whether it would be a synergy with the team. Right? And so when you look at job descriptions, a lot of times you're going to see a variety of things, right? There's the things that like 10 years of experience in whatever, 5 years of this and so forth. So that you can deal with and address with your resume. But in different parts of the job descriptions, they're also describing things like excellent communication skills, must be able to facilitate a workshop with senior management, or must be able to engage with business leaders to come up with, to evaluate business processes and so forth, right? So pick out little lines in there that fit in with how you want to demonstrate yourself. So if it's asking for great communication skills, then if you happen to have a video showing you presenting or sharing a certain message, then suddenly in like 2 or 3 minutes, you've kind of shown that recruiter or shown that person looking at your profile a way of you presenting and communicating, right? So you went from this two-dimensional black and white piece of paper that's a resume to a video where you show your soft skills, right? Because it's so hard to demonstrate soft skills on resumes, right? So pick out things like that. Also, like, pick out what that company values. A lot of times companies describe their values in the job descriptions. So they might value innovation, creativity, team spirit, whatever that may be. So pick out those values and demonstrate that or illustrate that in a variety of posts. Show things that you've done that are innovative. Show things that you've done that are creative, and so forth. Right? So that way, even if you don't land that specific job, because you pick that out to be a example of the best type of job that you want to apply for, then all that content can live forever on your posts and in your profile. And those are things to all demonstrate this extra side of you that's a lot harder to communicate just on a black and white piece of paper.
And I think even from the not just a job interview, not even landing a employer-employee relationship job. For instance, if you are a individual consulting firm or a small consulting firm and you want to focus on strategic sales, well, look for a job description of a sales manager, strategic sales, or business strategy, or sales enablement.
Absolutely.
I just hadn't thought about it. Like I said, it was definitely an aha moment for me, and I started doing that yesterday, and I've got like pages of content ideas. Now they need to be fine-tuned, right? I mean,
Sure. But yeah, that's how a lot of it comes. Like I always say, like the more you consume content, the more it'll spark ideas for your own content. And then you tailor it to your style, your personality, your flow, your energy. And that's where everything comes together nicely. And you become this three-dimensional human being on content.
Yeah. So this is great. This has been incredible content itself. And I really appreciate you being on the podcast and the video with me, but I did want to give you an opportunity. You did talk about your YouTube channel, and obviously people can look you up on LinkedIn, but how can people find you if they want to inquire about your services? If they want to hire you, or if they want to talk to you for a few minutes and then decide to hire you, how can they find you?
Absolutely. Thank you, Colin. No, I so enjoy sharing with you. Yeah, you can, I live on LinkedIn. So that's probably the best way to find me and connect with me, and follow my content, right? Check it out, scroll through all my posts. And if you decide that you want to have further conversations, I have a Calendly link on my profile. So set up a 30-minute complimentary call with me.
25-minute. It's a 25.
Oh, that's true. 25 minutes. I leave a little gap in there for extras. And that way we can get on a call and see if I can help you in some way. And but that's kind of how it starts. Look through my LinkedIn, and then YouTube. I've kind of been using it as a library, so that way you can kind of skim through and see whatever content tips or posts that I have a whole series of job search stories, which are interviews that I did with career coaches and resume experts and all that. So that's there to help all the job seekers out there. And then I have a whole series of videos for content tips.
Okay.
So find me on YouTube and LinkedIn.
Well, this is great. And for anybody listening, I can tell you, like I said, this was a totally organic. I saw either she commented or I read something, somehow was following. Then I commented, she commented back. Then I looked at her profile and she had this meeting option with the Calendly, like she said. I scheduled the meeting, really enjoyed the conversation. I'm looking at options of engaging with her on from a client standpoint, if you will, or service provider. And then, like I said, another one of my connections who I just had a call with yesterday mentioned Fanny. I was like, well, Fanny, I know Fanny. And she is actually, I think, working with her too. But so this has been great, Fanny. I appreciate it. And, it's time to wrap it up. And, thank you to everybody for listening and watching. I will look forward to talking to you again next week. But yeah, I live on LinkedIn too, so you can find Fanny Dunagan or Colin Harbor on LinkedIn, and love to connect with people and love to talk about business strategy and other things. But thank you for listening. Enjoy your week, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Colin.
Bye.
Appreciate your time.
Sure. Thank you.